Hello, Dr. Catherine Toomer, and I have a question for you. If you're in a weight loss process and nothing's happening, what are you doing wrong? I hear this question often, so stay tuned and we're going to talk about. I'm going to give you the five top reasons that I see um, people having difficulty losing weight when in their process. So I'm going to do this a little differently, ask the question, and now I'm going to play the intro. Hmm. What happened here? Ah, I see. Tried something a little different. Still, I'll get it together soon enough. Anyway, I'm Dr. Catherine Toomer. For those of you who have never seen me before, I am a family medicine and community health physician, and I am a metabolic weight care specialist. I myself have lost over 100 pounds. I've helped other people lose weight. I am a GLP-1 specialist in that I've been using GLP-1s for weight management long before 600 came out. So this is like 15 years. I've been on a GLP-1 myself for over 12 years. So I know quite a bit about GLP-1 medication, weight management, and how to help people lose weight. So, um, if you're here for the first time, say hello. Well, even if you're not here for the first time, let me know who you are, where you're listening from. And if you're listening later, put hashtag replay. All of this information is going to be on my YouTube channel. So subscribe and follow. And you can get it under the live tab. So hello, Marcia. Hello, Cindy from New Mexico. Marcia from Barbados. I remember where you're from this time. So welcome. So I want to talk about a question I hear often. I hear a long preamble. I see this all over the internet. I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm doing this, whatever. And what am I doing wrong? I'm not losing any weight. What am I doing wrong? So we're going to talk about what it is that people are doing wrong when in this process. Now, you know me. I'm not one to talk about what people do wrong. I prefer to focus on what people are doing right. But sometimes you just got to meet people where they are. So I'm just going to explain this to you. Hello, Denise from Pennsylvania. So I'm just going to give 5 reasons. Keep it short and sweet. The number 5 is people expecting too much from the process. So when I ask people, what do you mean it's not working? What are you doing wrong? Usually what they tell me is, oh, I've only lost X amount of weight. And when I ask how much in how short of a time, what they tell me is quite normal. Anywhere from 0.5 to 1 pound on average is what we ideally like to see. Because when you lose weight slowly, you're less likely to gain it back. At the most, we'd like to see 2 pounds on average a week. So what that means is average is the amount of time the amount of weight divided by the amount of time. That doesn't mean every single week you lose this amount of weight. It just means over average. So one week you might lose one amount, next week another amount, the next week nothing at all. And like I've said before, weight loss looks like an EKG. It kind of goes up, down and down, up and down and down. It might stay stagnant for a little while and goes up and down and down. So it's never a straight line. It just kind of goes like this all the way down. And it can take some time. And it should take time. Weight loss should not be quick. If it's quick, that means something extreme is happening. And if that extreme thing is happening and it stops, then all the weight comes back. And often the brain kicks in and says, I didn't like it, so I'm not going to let it happen again. So again, expecting too much from the process. So being realistic or unrealistic about the amount of weight that someone can lose in a certain amount of time. And not based on the internet. I can't tell you how many times I hear people say, well, so-and-so, I read other people are losing X, Y, Z. Comparaitis is one of the biggest saboteurs of any process. You compare yourself to other people and you will never appreciate what it is that you have. And when you compare yourself to other people with information that you don't even know if it's true, because people always tell the truth on the internet, we know that, right? Okay. So, always make sure that the process is yours. This is not a spectator sport, not for you, not for other people. You shouldn't be watching other people, what their weight loss is, comparing yourself to them. The other thing I see, people saying how much weight they're losing, and it's physiologically impossible. So I know they're not telling the truth. I'm not going to call them out on it, but I know it's not true. And I may start asking questions here and there, just saying, this or that. Often what happens, I end up getting blocked. So that doesn't always work. So anyway, so number 5, expecting too much from the process. Number 4, expecting too much from the activities that are being done. So I am a perfect example. I gained weight over many, 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 many years. Over 10-year period, I gained a whole lot of weight, then became a diabetic, then had to go on insulin, then went into congestive heart failure, developed worsening depression over that time. And all of those things happened slowly. And I eventually, ended up over 200 pounds at 5 feet tall. So if anyone wants to do the math, that's a BMI of over 40. Not that BMIs are the best measure of anything, but it's what we've got. So weight gain happens slowly. So does weight loss. And the expectation is that we lose it slowly over time, but we expect to lose it. We gain it slowly over time and we expect to lose it very quickly. That's just not how it works. So eating for a week, properly for a week, whatever properly is, exercising for a week is not going to have that big of a difference when over years things have been happening. That's assuming that eating and exercise are the reason you gained weight in the first place. And that brings me to number 3, addressing the wrong cause of the weight gain. We've been given a false message for many years that all weight gain is calories in, calories out, exercise more, eat less, and absolutely that can work up to a point. But for those people who are genetically predisposed to make fat out of food, which many of us are because of our metabolic condition, then that only goes so far, and it helps, but does not help completely. And so often what happens is we drop our appetite, drop our food really low. We start over exercising really high. And really all that does is it drives up our cortisol, which again, causes glucose dysregulation even more. And if you go into my YouTube channel, you'll see many videos that I talk about what cortisol does in the body. And I think a couple videos back, I talked about the mistakes we make, or when exercise does more harm than good. Well, that you can go back and listen to that. And I talk about what cortisol does in exercising over our abilities. So exercising too much is not helpful. Cutting down calories, again, is not helpful. When we don't go after the metabolic causes of our weight gain, then we're often not very successful and we don't get the results we want. And there's many reasons why we can have just a metabolic disruption. Genetics is number 1, and we can't outrun anything our genetics. It just is what it is. It's the reason why some people can eat whatever they want and don't gain a pound. We always say, no, they've got good genes. Well, the opposite is the truth. You smell bread and you gain weight. That's also genetics. So genetics is number 1. Age. So what worked at 20 years old is not going to be the same thing that's going to work at 40 years old, because age changes, our hormones change along with our age, and that affects also our metabolic process. Our gender can make a difference. Now, with men, it's a drop in testosterone, and women, it's testosterone and estrogen and progesterone. All of those things affect muscle mass, and which affects our metabolism, and cortisol, which affects our metabolic uh, regulation. So again, many videos on that in my YouTube channel, so you can go look at those. Stress, number one thing I see people not paying attention to. They just don't realize that stress will derail any other process because it is a metabolic disruptor of the worst kind. And so without addressing it, nothing else really can happen. Even if it happens initially, over time, that process is going to stop because stress is messing with cortisol. Pregnancy is another disruptor. So people say, I was fine until I got pregnant. After pregnancy, I couldn't get rid of the weight. Well, that's because certain genetic conditions kicked in and their state kicked in. And so it takes different things to go after the weight that you gain from pregnancy. So again, not going after the cause, and almost always the cause is metabolic. It has very little to do with food amount. Now, it can do with food content. I talk about this a lot. Carbohydrates, yes. But other than that, there's no amount of food that matters unless you're just way overeating. And anyone can tell you who's been overweight, like I have, like others have had. I eat way more now than I did when I was 100 pounds heavier because it wasn't about the amount of food. It was always about the content and what my body did with it. And that's what happens really with everybody. So, so number 3 is addressing the wrong cause. And the right cause is metabolic. Go after your metabolic causes. So, and then number 2, biggest reason, listening to the wrong people. Now, obviously, I don't think I'm one of the wrong people because, I wouldn't be talking right now if I did. So, but listening to the wrong people, essentially, people who have no expertise in what they're talking about. Now, there are people who can be very, very helpful based on their own experiences. And that's all they can tell you. This is what I did. This is what happened with me. This is how I felt. This is what I did. That is fine. You can try and copy that. You can try and emulate those people. But because you have different genetics, because you have different bodies, your body may not respond in the same way that theirs did. So what they say isn't a rule, it's just a suggestion. When someone has an experience, that does not mean they are an expert. Now, if you take that experience and you add education to it, that's helpful because now you have science, you have studies, you have other things to back up that experience. You can say, this happened to me, but typically with other people, this happens. Or what happened to me was typical. So that is fine. But if you put all of your attention into someone who's only had an experience of their own and don't have any other education to back it up, clearly they can steer you wrong. And it can be very convincing. Just because someone has charisma and is articulate and can speak really well does not mean they know what they're talking about. And just because they're talking loudly and often, see, a lot of people who just put out video after video after video after video doesn't mean they know what they're talking about. It just means they like talking on video. You've got to be able to differentiate who is whom and how they're presenting the information. Filter it through. That is their experience. This may not be right for me. I can try it, but doesn't mean I'm failing if it doesn't work. However, there are people who have expertise who, after years and years and years, and of course I'm going to put myself in that category because I do. I've had my experience, my own personal experience, yes. I am very well educated. I have years of med school and training, even at a metabolic center of excellence. So that's why I talk about a lot of metabolic stuff, and I know a lot about it because that's how I was trained. But I've also had 25 years of patient experience, and that's given me an expertise in areas. I've seen patterns, and patterns will teach you what to expect. Everybody's not identical. There are nuances, and you need people to understand what those nuances are. And like I've often said, someone's experience will give you inspiration and will give you hope. Education will give you guidance, but expertise will keep you from harm. And there's always harm in any process, particularly when we're talking about weight loss and we're in this time of diet culture. There has always been a dangerous element to weight loss. There has been deaths because of people trying to lose weight and trying to be thin. And so it is really important that you make sure you get your information from the proper place. And even if it's from proper places, you can do it from more than one place, and you can, weigh it and see which one works for you. But got some in my eye. But because of diet culture, and because there have always been those people who've done extreme things, have behaved in extreme ways, you just want to be careful who you listen to. So, like I've always said, you don't ask a passenger on a plane how to fly it. And when it comes to your health and it comes to your body, you want to make sure that whatever you do is safe. But the number one reason I see when people say, what am I doing wrong? Nothing. They're not doing anything wrong. They're doing everything like they're supposed to be doing. But they're not trusting the process. They somehow have this idea that the process should be different. Real weight loss, real healthy, normal weight loss, weight management isn't sexy. It's not exciting. It's very slow. And it's very monotonous because you have to do the same thing over and over and over again because you need consistency in order for it to work. And so most of the time, it's just people are bored, or they're seeing all this exciting, flashy stuff all over the internet. And so they think that something they're doing is wrong. And most of the time, like I said, the number one thing I think I see that people are doing wrong is simply not trusting their process, and they're doing absolutely nothing wrong. That's it. So the way to counter that is to study. Know what medication you're taking. Know what that medication does. Know what it doesn't. Understand doses. Know your doses in milligrams, not in units, not in cc's. You have to know the concentration of your medication. If you're getting it from a compounded pharmacy, you also need to understand, and if you're getting it from, even if you're getting from regular pharmacy, and this isn't just for GLP-1 medications or weight management medication, this is for all your medications. You should know the names and doses of all your medicine and how often you're supposed to take it daily, or how often you're supposed to take it, because some medications are weekly. So that means knowing your doses, knowing the frequency that you're supposed to take it. And then the other is just knowing nutritional facts, because you could be doing things that are working against you if you don't understand nutrition. But most of the time it's just around carbohydrates, really. It's really quite simple. But so understanding that you don't have to avoid fat. That's one of the biggest mistakes I see people making, is avoiding fat. And what fat does, especially if it's a healthy fat, is it slows down our sugar spikes. And I've said this many times before, it is those sugar spikes that actually cause fat production. It sets off a chemical reaction, a biochemical process, a molecular biological cascade that leads to fat production. So you want to keep sugar spikes, blood glucose down, and fat is a good way of doing that. So fat does not make you fat. Carbohydrates do. And carbohydrates do in people like me, like others who are genetically predisposed to have glucose dysregulation, whose bodies are just primed to take every bit of carbs you make and turn it into fat. And that is why diabetic medications work so well for weight management, is because it's all on the same continuum. So again, what are you doing wrong? Probably nothing. I'm just going to run through the 5 again. Expecting too much from the process. Number 4 is expecting too much from the activities and the length of time you've been doing those activities. Number 3 is addressing the wrong cause of your weight gain because you have to go after the cause in order to reverse it. Number 2 is listening to the wrong people or comparing yourself to the wrong people who may or may not be telling you the truth, who may or may not be in a healthy process, and you don't want to emulate those who are doing things that are harmful. And then number 5 is just not trusting your process. You're probably doing absolutely nothing wrong. You just have to wait and let the process run its course. All right. So if you have any questions, just put them in the chat. If you have questions later, you can go to my YouTube channel and you can ask me questions under any of the videos. I make sure I get the notifications and I will respond. And if you find anything that I've said today interesting, helpful, important, something that somebody else may find useful, share it with them. Ask them to subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'm trying to get to 1,000 followers. I'm at 975. So I need 25 more people. So so follow me. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, and you can go through my videos and look for, there's lots of different videos and there's over 200 videos. So if there's a topic you want to know about, I'm pretty sure I've done a video on it. If I haven't, then all you have to do is write to me at help@drtoomer.com, or you can put it underneath one of the videos also, and just say that, you'd like me to talk on XYZ, and I will. So Stephanie Ann asks, can you repeat this about carbs make you fat? Okay. So the way our body makes fat is that we eat a carbohydrate. Actually, we put a carbohydrate in our mouth or even smell a carbohydrate, and our brain gets ready for its drug. Our brain functions on glucose and ketones. Glucose happens when we eat, is the breakdown of carbohydrates. Ketones happen when we're starving. So that's the reason why there are so many religious fasting, because it keeps you sharp. But anyway, but mostly for us, it's glucose. So our brain, in order to get its drug that it needs in order to function, it will start breaking down carbohydrates in our mouth. It is the only substance that gets broken down in our mouth by our saliva. So that when we eat it, it gets broken down, it goes to our stomach, it gets meshed up, and again, acid starts breaking it down some more. It goes to our intestines and it gets absorbed as glucose. When our body absorbs glucose, our pancreas, which is another organ in our body, our digestive tract, shoots out insulin. What insulin does, what it's supposed to do, is help that glucose, that blood sugar, get into the cells so the cells can make energy. The problem is that most of us who gain weight very easily have insulin resistance. So our cells don't get the message from the insulin, and that sugar just stays in the bloodstream. Well, when it stays in the bloodstream and doesn't get into the cell, the brain thinks you haven't eaten. And so the brain keeps telling you to eat more. The brain says, well, you're not eating, so I'm going to take everything you do eat, including the blood sugar that's floating around right now, and make fat out of it. I'm going to store it as fat because I don't know what else to do with it, just in case you starve again. When technically you're not starving. Your cells are starving, but you're not. But your brain doesn't know the difference. So that's why carbohydrates make you fat. What fat gets used for is broken down into amino acids. Amino acids get made into hormones. Testosterone, estrogen, insulin even. It's like all the hormones, and most of the hormones in our body are made through fat. And then the other is protein, which gets broken down to amino acids. And amino acids make up all the structures of our body. All the organs, our liver, our kidneys, our heart, our skin, everything is all muscle, is all from protein. And then minerals, vitamins and minerals are used for our bone structure. It's used for our electrical system. And then minerals are often used for as what are called catalysts um, in electrical, or sorry, in why am I blanking on chemical reactions in our body. So it just helps them move more smoothly. So that's what vitamins do. But some vitamins help us absorb certain things better, like vitamin C helps us absorb iron better. Iron is then used for our blood products, in our bone marrow. So that's where a lot of other things. But carbohydrates go to fat, fat goes to hormones. Cindy says, "Thank you, Dr. Toomer. I so needed this today." I'm glad. Um, so I'm glad this helped. I love your short. Your doctor always so thorough. Thanks. Oh, good. I think I get too wordy, so it's always nice to know that my explanations go over well. So Denise says, "I'm in a stall. I take brand and compound Zepbound 5 milligrams. After taking compound for 2 months straight, I decided to switch to the brand for a month, and it broke my stall. Is this common?" Well, probably what happened, your stall was going to break. Okay, this is one of two things. One, 5 milligrams is a very, very low dose. So 15 milligrams is the highest dose of Zepbound, or tirzepatide, which is the compounded version. So you weren't on a very high dose to begin with. So it wasn't technically a stall, it was an under treatment, first of all. Second of all, if you're taking a compound and it's not really working well for you, and you start using a brand and it works, what that means is the compound was not what it was supposed to be. That's the problem with compounds. There's no regulation for compounds, and sometimes people are a bit shady, and they know they can make more money if they give you a subpar product if they dilute it. So they don't put all that they should into the product. Tirzepatide is a rather expensive medication to make, and so people cut corners. One of the reasons why I pay a little more for compounded meds for any of my family members is because I know that the pharmacy that I use uses the actual amounts. And usually when that happens, it costs more. And so often when it comes to compounded meds, you get what you pay for. So that is probably what it was. You were taking a compound that wasn't what it said it was. But then often with stalls, and people call stalls, often they're not really stalls. You just aren't losing weight as quickly as you were before, and but you're still losing at a healthy rate, or you were losing weight too quickly. Your brain realized that something was happening and it stopped it, because your brain registers weight loss as starvation. As we don't, our brain doesn't like it when we lose weight, so sometimes it just stops it. There's lots of different things that are stalls, and sometimes it's just your body taking time to reset. But it sounds like you were undertreated anyway. 5 milligrams is not a high enough dose to know if you're on a true stall or not. Hope that answers your question. It's Darium. How are you? Darium said, "This is wonderful. I picked up the last part, but I got the fact that you said you could be doing." Okay. Sometimes. So the body does what the body does with help. And so it really takes some analysis to figure out what it is that it's actually doing. So the reason what I said was, the number one reason I see that people think they're doing something wrong is because they just don't understand their process. They don't understand their dosing, their schedule, their frequency, what's supposed to happen, what isn't supposed to happen. And so their expectations are off. And so often people are just doing what they're supposed to be doing, and then they just let it just take time. But if you want, Darren, you can go back and re-listen to the first part of the video. There's lots of stuff in my YouTube channel. So if you haven't subscribed already, subscribe to my YouTube channel. One, you'll get notifications anytime I do a video. But the other is that under the live tab, there's like 200 videos. there's so much information in there, and so you can go in there and just pick and choose. There's also shorts. Um, my assistant will take these videos and try to truncate them, make little shorts, so you don't have to listen to the whole thing to figure out what's in it, and then you can go and find the longer video once you've listened to the short from the shorter video. Can not having a gallbladder affect how Manjaro works? No. Not having a gallbladder actually is helpful, because one of the worst side effects of rapid weight loss is gallstones. One of the biggest, most dangerous thing of gallstones is getting lodged in the common bile duct, which causes pancreatitis and gallstone inflammation or cholecystitis. So not having a gallbladder actually protects you from that. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't affect how Manjaro works. The main thing that affects how Manjaro works, the biggest reasons I see when Manjaro doesn't work is because of stress. Stress not being managed. And people assuming they're not having stress. Your body can react to stress even if you yourself have gotten used to it. And you're, consciously used to it, but that doesn't mean your body's. So if you're gaining weight through the middle, you have a cortisol issue. If you are getting darkening around the base of your neck, you've got a insulin resistance cortisol issue, more than likely. If you find that you're catching colds all the time, if you keep getting viral infections, you might have some cortisol issues, because cortisol affects your immunity. So if you're someone who checks your blood sugars and you can't get your blood sugars to come down, might have a cortisol issue. So the best way to get Manjaro to work is to take it like you're supposed to, make sure you're at the appropriate dose, and then eating to support it, watching your stress, getting enough sleep, drinking enough water, and then building muscle. Manjaro helps your metabolic status, but muscle does too. And you can make sure that your medicine doesn't do all the heavy lifting by, no pun intended, all the heavy lifting by building muscle along with it. So you're not as dependent on the medicine. I will definitely listen to the replay. Okay. And then if you have questions you just ask me questions on the video. I do see them and I do come and answer them. How do you correct a cortisol issue? By mindfulness, meditation. It is stress reduction. So anything that works on stress reduction. So either one of it is there's 3 phases. It depends on the reason that your cortisol's high. So cortisol can go up for a couple of reasons. One, you've been in an environment throughout childhood that triggers you. So you're like in a high stress survival mode throughout your life. So you get triggered very easily. You have a really well-honed fight or flight reaction. The other with age that happens is when your estrogen starts to drop because of menopause, your cortisol then becomes unopposed and your body starts acting like you're under stress even when you're not. Pregnancy can also make your cortisol go up. Exercising too heavily can make your cortisol go up. But the key is, the way you get your cortisol to come down is by controlling your mind. The most immediate way of getting your cortisol down is deep yoga breathing. And you can go on YouTube and find all sorts of ways of learning how to do that. It takes practice. When you practice, you get good at it, and your body responds more quickly the more often you do it. The intermediate way of dropping stress is to learn how not to react to stressors. And the way to do that is through therapy, through medication if necessary, through identifying the causes of that stressor and avoiding them, so you avoid your triggers. And then the longest term way of avoiding stress is to get rid of the stressor altogether. And some things that's possible, like, if it's a job, you can change it. If it's your children, you got to keep them. Most of the time, send them off to grandma's house. So it just, Some stressors are just part of life, so you just learn to deal with the stress, and that is by learning to just create calm with internal calm. But it takes practice. For me, because I have a heart condition that I that reacts to stress. I am one of those people who I can have a heart attack just from being under stress. Because there's a type of heart condition that can do that way. So if anyone ever meets me, do not scare me, please. If you come up and say boo, it can actually send me to the hospital. And everybody who knows me knows that. So, and so I have had to learn how to keep my heart rate down, how not to react, to become very zen around about a lot of things. And because if I don't, it actually can kill me. Now, most people, it kills them over long periods of time of chronic stress. For me, it can be immediate and intense. So there are ways of doing it. It is a muscle that has to be built. And there are lots now with YouTube, it's so easy to find things. Hypnosis worked really well for me. I'm actually a certified hypnotherapist because of it. So I help other people. And so you just learn. And so now I also can self hypnotize. I can actually do self trances. I usually wait till I'm trying to fall asleep though to do it. But so there's lots of different ways. You just have to find it, learn it, and practice it. Koana said, Dr. Toomer, I've been taking Wegovy 2.4 milligrams for a year and I have reached my weight loss goal and I'm now taking it every other week. How long can I go without taking it? And do you have to be weaned off the medication or can you just stop taking it? Never stop. So this is the thing. How you lose your weight, how you gain your weight is the way you go after losing it. If Wegovy helped you lose weight, that meant that you have a chronic metabolic condition. That chronic metabolic condition does not go away just because you've lost your weight. The only thing that can make a chronic metabolic condition go away temporarily for women is muscle. But as soon as your hormones start to drop, it comes right back. So, or your estrogen starts to drop, it comes back. But muscle is the only thing that can remove your dependency on medicine. And it usually won't take it away, it just reduces it. So the way, and sometimes your body will reset, but that's very rare. So the way you find out what your frequency is, think about what your symptoms were before you started taking the medicine. Weight gain is the one we measure the most, but there's other things that go away. Inflammation. Most of us had joint pain, had headaches, had something that caused us problems before that suddenly stopped once we started taking a GLP-1. Maybe you had mood swings before. You had depression that suddenly stopped when you when you got your maximum dose of a GLP-1. You may have had infections all the time that suddenly stopped, like yeast infections, for example, or skin, cuts that wouldn't heal very well. There's lots of or maybe GI problems, like your stomach used to hurt or didn't hurt. There's lots of different symptoms that you have probably recognized have gone away now that you've been on a GLP-1 medication, because it does a lot of good for a lot of things. Maybe your blood pressure came down and you no longer have to take blood pressure medication. That's the most common thing I see. So what you do when you get to maintenance is you see how far you can spread out your medicine before those symptoms start to come back. And when they start to come back, you pull back, because you don't ever want to have to feel them again. You just want to be able to see how long you can go before you feel them. Then once you've got that frequency, you stay there for a while. Sometimes it's 2 weeks, sometimes it's 3, sometimes it's a month, sometimes it's 2 weeks one time, and then later something happens and you got to go back to a week. So if you're under a high stress situation, that 2-week interval may not work for you anymore. But that's based on you and your body and how it responds to things, and you talk to your doctor and you kind of work it out. Once you get to a nice frequency, then you can drop the dose and see how that happens. Problem is, like I said, not a problem. Our bodies are not machines. They're machines to a certain degree, obviously, but they're not robots. So they don't do the exact same thing every single day under every single situation. So just because something works for you one month, it may not work for you the next month, because either you're because of your menstrual cycle, or because of travel, or because of change in diet, or because of change in stress, because of different eating patterns, hydration. There's so many different things that can change. So, you just kind of listen to your body and pay attention. The beautiful thing about GLP-1s is that they allow us to get better signals from our body, so we better know what our body is doing. And I hope that answers your question, Juana. Romana asks, any stress reducing strategies? There's lots of them. Like I mentioned, meditation, mindfulness, Pilates works really well to both reduce stress and build muscle. Deep yoga breathing. If you go on YouTube and just look up stress reducing strategies, stress reducing videos, there are lots of them out there. But stress reduction is a chemical reaction in your brain and your body. It's a brain body connection. You have to train it. It's like a muscle that gets stronger and stronger the more you use it. So it has to be practiced. It can't just be done. It has to be practiced. Yeah, deep yoga breathing, definitely. That's what I use mostly, because you can do it anywhere at any time and anything. And basically, if you want to stick around until after I'm done going through all the questions, I'll actually do a deep yoga breathing exercise with you if you'd like. If you don't have any lung disease, you can do this. If you have asthma or COPD, I would recommend not doing it and talking to your doctor first. Okay, bless you, Dr. Toomer. Thank you. I must definitely have to keep the kids. So yeah, but you can always send them off to somebody's house. That's why summer camps are for. Really, it's just give parents a break. Ramona says, I'm on Manjaro, 12.5 milligrams, just got a Freestyle Libra and noticed that blood sugar dropped to 60 a few times in the night. Ignore that. I have slept through the alarms. Ignore them. I do not need to decrease my dose. No. I think I have asymptomatic hypoglycemia. We all have asymptomatic hypoglycemia. One of the things I do not like about continuous glucose monitoring is that it pathologizes normal fluctuations in our blood sugar. Talk to your doctor just to be on the safe side. But if you're not feeling it, it's not a problem. Most of us have blood sugars that drop. I didn't even know mine were dropping until I've never changed anything. And I got a glucose monitor and it started waking me up at night because my blood sugar would drop. And half the time it didn't do anything. It was so I just stopped wearing it because then I got better sleep. Nothing changed. It just got better sleep. So you say you usually finish your dinner by 8 p.m. I mean, you can talk to your doctor about adjusting. I mean, that's a discussion you have with your doctor. But if only diff change was that you started monitoring, and now, did you get the monitor at the same time you upped your dose? That's the question. If the only thing that changed was that you got a monitor, then it's the monitor, not the change in dose. But you talk to your doctor about that. Okay. So if there are no more questions, what I'm going to do right now is, so what I would recommend when doing this, you go to a quiet place, try to make it dark, not too hot, not too cold. Oh, that's possibly, yeah, compression low, so blood doesn't get to it. But to be honest, I know they have their place. Don't get me wrong. Continuous glucose monitors have their place, but I find them more annoying than anything. I don't generally prescribe them unless someone's on insulin. Now, I do prescribe them for people who are on insulin, because insulin, on the other hand, can actually drop your blood sugar beyond what your body can correct. But GLP-1s usually don't do that. Even most other medications don't do that, other than glucose. Of course, I'm blanking now on the name. There's a sulfonylurea, which is a type of medication that's used for diabetes that can drop you too low. But most of us don't use it much anymore. But insulin is the other. So that's the only time usually where I even prescribe glucose monitors, because, like I said, they can drop your sugar so low that your body cannot correct it. So that, but usually most other medicine can. Our liver actually makes blood sugar. So when that happens, our liver just immediately kicks in and starts making blood sugar to raise it back up again. That's why it can go down and comes back up without you doing anything. And then goes down again and then comes back up without doing, because your liver takes over. Okay. So if the only thing you got is the monitor, it's the monitor, not you. Like I said, our body has a way of correcting low blood sugar already. So, so what I'd like to do now is just a quick exercise just to let you know how to do deep yoga breathing. So essentially what you want to do is you want your feet to be relaxed, your arms to be relaxed. You just want to stay in a normal relaxed position, preferably in the dark, preferably someplace cool so you're not too hot, not too cold, where there's not a lot of noise. And but you can do this really anyway. You learn how to tune things out, or you can use earphones like noise cancellation earphones, or you can use earplugs, headphones, whatever if you don't have to hear anything. Of course, you can't do that while you're driving, but you can relax while you're driving. If you're not driving and you're sitting in a place, you can close your eyes. And essentially, there's a reason why when we get stressed, we go, or we say count to 10. What that's doing is it resets. You have what's called a vagus nerve. Our vagus nerve runs from our brain down to our diaphragm. Our vagus nerve is what is called a parasympathetic nerve. What parasympathetic is our rest and relaxation mechanism. It's the opposite of fight or flight. So if you're under stress, this does the opposite. And the way that we activate that nerve is by flattening our diaphragm. When you take a deep breath, so when we breathe out, our diaphragm does this, and when we take a breath, it flattens. Well, when it flattens and whatever's connected to it is going to stretch. And when nerves get stretched, they get activated. So if our vagus nerve is attached and we take a nice deep breath, it gets activated automatically. So that's rest and relaxation. But when you take a breath, you let your stomach go out, not in. We have a bad habit of sucking in when we breathe. Instead, you breathe in and you push out. That is often the big thing that people have to practice the most, is learning how to let their stomach go out when they take a deep breath. And so you take a breath in and your stomach goes out. So just if you just practice that first, taking breath, letting it out. So sucking in and your stomach should go out. Now, the way you can tell if you're doing this correctly is you bring your fingers together like this and put them just gently touching, and you put them over your stomach. So when you take a deep breath and you're doing it correctly, your fingers should come apart and come back together. When you take a deep breath, now I'm just doing it up here to show you, but it should be on your stomach. And so you do that and you just kind of get that feeling. Learn how to take a deep breath and poke your stomach out at the same time. So once you've gotten that and you know that you're doing it correctly, you can take one hand and keep it on your stomach, and then the other hand, put it on your chest. Just gently lay it on your chest. Part of that is for grounding. When we touch our chest, we touch our heart, we tend to become more in tune with ourselves. So when you take a deep breath, so the way you do it is you take a slow 4-count breath in through your nose, hold it for 7 counts. So it's 4 breaths in, hold for 7, and then breathe out over 8. Take a slow breath in 4 counts, hold, and let it out in 8. Now, while you're doing that, try to make sure that your shoulders are relaxed. We have a tendency to bring our shoulders up when we're stressed. Try to relax your shoulders. If you have to roll them a little bit or kind of like do little exercises like that just to kind of loosen your shoulders before you begin, that you can do. So again, just 4 breaths in, hold for 7, and then let it out through pierced lips. 8. And that is deep yoga breathing. And what happens over time, if you do that and you try to clear your mind while you're doing that, your brain knows what you're trying to do. And so the first times as you're learning how to do it, it may take 20 breaths, it may take 30 breaths before you start to feel that relaxation. Over time, what will happen, you just need to take 1 breath and it will do it. Your brain's like, oh, I know what she's trying to do. I know what he's trying to do. He's trying to get relaxed. So I'm going to help. And then, because our brain loves a pattern. And so if we just keep doing it and we train our brain to like, okay, when I do this is because I want you to shut down and I want you to activate my vagus nerve and I want you to activate my rest and relaxation hormones, your body will do. Like right now, I'm feeling so relaxed. And so you probably can hear it in my voice because my voice tends to get deeper when I'm relaxed. Um, and so um, and so I'll, maybe I'll just do a couple videos and put them up and you can use those and I'll just talk you through it. The nice thing, if you go on YouTube, they have like uh, sound things where it's rain or, I like the sound of running water. Some people like the sound of rain. Some people like the sound of wind. Some people like the sound of waves in the ocean. Um, so you can have that in the background playing while you're doing these breathing exercises and it just relaxes you. Okay. So, all right. Well, I'm relaxed now, so I'm going to say goodbye. But if you do have questions, like I said, just put them after the video. I will come back and I'll answer them. And if you have other things you like to do, and so like I said, since I am a hypnotherapist, I'll do a couple of breathing exercises and do some gentle hypnosis. Now I know a lot of people like hypnosis. Ooh. Well, it is not what you see on TV or what you see in movies. What hypnosis is really is just deep relaxation. That's really all it is. And so that's what it helps with. So I'll probably put some out and let you all take a look at them and see. All right. So good night. Have a good evening. Thank you. This was a great discussion, actually. Thank you for your comments and your questions. I appreciate it. And I will see you next Tuesday for Dr. Toomer Talks. Good night.